started at 3:01 p.m. This is a Wednesday. So before we go into the agenda as it is printed, with our board status now only having 3 persons, and that makes a quorum to be able to hold meetings, we need to elect a secretary. As that position is open for the board, so if I may at this time, I'd like to open up nominations for filling the position of secretary.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Drew Poindexter as chairman, as secretary.
You sit in this chair too. Okay, we have a nomination for Drew as secretary. I would second that motion. Is there any discussion? The big money. If there's no discussion, all those in favor of nominating and electing Drew Poindexter as the secretary of the Surry County Board of Elections, please say aye. Aye. Majority of the board members. So you're now in that position. So until we re-up in July.
And you could be again. And then would you like me to take the minutes?
Please.
Okay.
And maintain them.
And maintain them.
So graciously offered, thank you.
Okay, we have our minutes from our meeting of March 17, 2023, which was canvas meeting minutes. They go into 2.5 pages. I'll give everyone time to go through those.
Seemed like it's a year ago. On the 3rd page, Michelle, it said, Mr. P stated our one reason to be here today to certify this election. Mr. P continued to the two members that voted, 2 to
Oh, I
have
should say
this.
to have, yes,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
should that be there?
Yes, you are correct, thank you.
I read into it and I didn't see it.
Yes, that needs, the word, the TO needs to be in there.
Where is that at?
Third page, have
The paragraph that starts,
Yes,
Mr. Poindexter.
stated our one region.
That voted to have this special election.
Is this the copy for signature? I don't have this one.
Oh, here, I corrected it here, what you use this one if you'd like, yep.
What would have happened if there'd been a majority not to certify that election? I just wondered.
And I think that would go to the state board of elections.
See if they could.
The certification.
Makes
And
sense.
what would have probably have happened, it would be along with the state board certifying the state board of elections. You know, and they do it a couple weeks later than we do, which meant those people couldn't take office again until it was certified.
Does the state board have to come behind us and certify what we've already certified? Or does the
We-
state either?
No, I have to mail that same day, all the originals to
Do the
them.
snail mail to them for them to
Well, I
certify?
upload it to them and I do snail mail backup. Mhm.
They have to sign it too?
They have to receive all that from all 100 counties before they have their certification.
So is it not really certified till they do it, or is it certified after we do it?
Well, for that particular election, the state board would not have certified. They did not get involved. Once it was certified here, that one was done. So I don't know, really,
The
that would be
November,
interesting.
the November election,
Mhm.
three voted certified, no, 4 voted certified. that one.
Mhm.
But what if, all right, after it's certified here, what does state do after that? Do they just sign off on it?
They do, but as far as I know, they do. Mhm.
I'm just-
Because in order for us to be able to canvass, we have to have closed out and completed all voter history. Everything has to be done. So the state board, they sort of stay on us to see if there's any gaps or any problem before we can have canvass. So that's why we have to stay here till whenever, that night before, in the morning of, to get everything finished before we can finalize voter history, and we can have canvass.
Mr. Chairman, with the corrections noted by Ms. Poindexter to the minutes, I make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented with that correction.
Motion's been made to accept the minutes of March 17th. And we have a second. Is there any discussion on the nominated, the motion and the second? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion is carried. Okay. Position for secretary. Another notation that we may make here in the open meeting is that it has been investigated and we have received from the state board of elections that we are approved to continue to do business. Our board for this office with the majority, the 3 members, with the exception of anything that would come before us that would be of a bipartisan nature, I would imagine. And of course, we won't or don't have anything like that we would be having between now and reappointments. But it is clear through state legal that we can conduct business. We can hold this meeting and make motions and approve it. we are legally constituted. Okay, next on the agenda is public forum. See, there's no one in the hall. Is there anyone online? Okay, we will close the public forum, and Michelle, you'll give us legal updates, please.
Yes, you should have that in your packet, well, it's a front and back. And basically, this just covers everything that has occurred since the ruling of the North Carolina Supreme Court on April the 28th of this year. The bulk of it you see is to do with voter ID, photo ID, which the state just put this out officially this morning. I don't know if any of you saw it, but this is pretty much verbatim.
I actually printed that and brought it with me.
Okay,
I want to
okay.
talk about it. Didn't
Yeah.
know what you had there.
Yeah.
Or put anything together on it.
And Sydney, of course, has put that on our website as well. So on our website, you can have, these items that are underlined, you can actually click, hey there, how are you? Good. You can actually click on and expand, unlike this version here. But,
Yes, sir. Does this do away with what Judge Biggs, the Judge Biggs decision, is it this new ruling?
No.
Do that?
no, that's not the one.
I thought it was, I thought it
well,
was something to do with photo
It
ID,
is
photo
part, I
ID.
guess it is part of that one, yeah. But this took effect on the 28th. Of course, we don't have any elections that this will affect until the March 2024 primary for Surry County. But across the state, there are some elections in September, some elections in October, and then of course November with municipals. So it will be, of course, in effect for those elections. We received wording today from the state to update our cards that we send out to people, because those had to be changed January 1st of 2020 to reflect no photo ID required. So we've got the language, and that's actually what Robin and Sydney are working on now. They're putting stickers with the correct wording to reflect this on our cards to get that updated and legal. And just a couple of things to point out. We won't get into all 9 of these items, but what will happen when a voter appears to vote? And let's say they present their photo ID and it is a driver's license, but that driver's license maybe doesn't look exactly like the person standing before them to that poll worker who was checking that person in.
Yeah, for 8 years now.
And if it's been 8 years, I know I look a lot different than, for reasons I'm not gonna name.
Me too.
I look a lot different from mine.
Mm.
So what will happen is, it will need to be a decision by the entire group of poll workers that
In that
say,
precinct or one stop.
in that precinct, in that one stop, that agree, yes, there is a reasonable resemblance of John Doe in front of me with John Doe driver's license, whatever ID he or she has provided. So, reasonable resemblance is what you're gonna hear a lot of, in the coming months, and through the primary. And also what will happen if those poll workers deem, no, in fact, they don't believe there is, a resemblance, there's going to be some probably sticky situations, but what that person will be offered is a provisional ballot. That person will then have the time between casting that provisional ballot and by 5 p.m. on the day of supplemental absentee, or actually I think the law reads before canvass, to come in and provide a photo ID or whatever they have that it is them. So, and then the board will then be deciding on that at the supplemental absentee or either right before canvass to process those.
Hopefully by spreading that between all of the precinct workers in either one stop or election day. But spreading the question between more people, somebody can step forward and say, I sit with them in church Sunday. That's it. But
Right.
here in a smaller rural county, people would know more,
Mhm.
possibly, hopefully.
Especially on election day, that might come into play more.
Yeah.
And also, you know, those that don't have a photo ID, they will still be allowed to vote. Again, they'll be allowed to vote through a provisional ballot. And that same rule will take effect. They will have up until the day of canvass to present some form of photo ID to us if they have filled out that ID exception form, which that will be, they will have to agree to fill that out in order to cast that ballot. But supplemental absentee meeting's gonna be longer. And Dwayne and Drew, you remember supplemental absentee in 2020. It was a 7.5 hour meeting. Then,
Just on supplemental.
just on supplemental. Now that was general, not primary. But again, as we go on, hopefully things will get a little better in November compared to March. But you all also know the turnout for a primary is a little less than the turnout for the general in a presidential year, especially. But also with this, then we are going to receive and have more provisional ballots cast. So, it's gonna be a longer meeting.
Education, information,
Yeah.
getting it out there to the folks
Right.
will hopefully help cut that.
And also you, Dwayne, you remember, Drew, you might remember, the state did provide, I don't know how, if it was purchased or provided, whatever, with the BODNO system, where anybody can come in and get a photo ID from us here in this office. So the state is working on that BODNO software to make sure that, number one, all counties still have it. They still have the necessary items to go with the BODNO to make sure that it works. And then I think the bigger question the state is working on is what to do to secure that database of photos that now each county board of elections is going to have in their possession. So guidance will have to come in the coming months about the BODNO system so we can provide any voter who already has a photo ID or does not, we will be able to provide that to them ahead of time, free of charge.
Doesn't have to be DMC.
DMV does not.
They can go to DMV and they can get a no
Yes.
fee ID.
Yeah, but it's not limited to the now.
Mm-mm.
That's the thing that I made several notes about coming into today, because I received that thing from the state board this morning and copied it. And that's the thing I wanted to ask you some questions about,
Mhm.
is this requirement that folks can come here now, and
Mhm.
here's the form, I want my ID.
Yes, and again, it will be free of charge. And we're just waiting on guidance they have not released any county to begin issuing those at this time.
I'm unfamiliar with the system you're talking about, BODNO or whatever it is. Explain that to me.
And basically it is, we had it on a cart and it is a laptop with a camera. You take the photo, you know, you enter into the database, then you print the card right then and there for the person, and it's just exactly like this.
So you have card blank
Mhm.
that prints
Yes,
through a printer and you still have that equipment.
we have it all. Mhm.
Does that database of those photographs taken upload to a state database, or can it be contained individually?
That's what the state's working on. That's the unanswered question. I think they're trying to determine according to stay, to have this secure database of photos in accordance with the law, whatever tying those two together. Those kinks haven't been necessarily worked out yet. I think
We
they,
had it about 10 years ago.
well, we have, but it's never been put in place with BodNote. Now, I don't know about 10 years ago what they had.
Started in 2019,
Late
ready for the 2020.
Yes.
And they provide name, address, last four of social in order to get that, so they gotta provide you.
Yes, they have to provide, I guess, the same as you would like when you do same day registration at One Stop, because they're appearing in front of you. But yes, something showing this is where I live. This is, I don't think I have to do last four of social. But they
Some
say that
type
there?
of an address or a statement or utility.
Like if you didn't.
Well, then that would be in addition to them.
Sure does.
You have to provide something. to be
Yeah, I read that in
able to do
some of the stuff the other day.
Let's see, I don't-
For a state issue, even for this state
I
ID.
think what I call concerns me
Yeah.
is if you were to have a group that said, we're going to, but I think they can do that right up through all the way up during election time.
Oh, yeah. Up to Canvas.
If you had a group that came in and said, we're gonna overwhelm that office.
Hmm.
We're gonna overwhelm them. That concerns me.
And you do realize
I mean, a concerted
the 10 days
effort.
between election night and canvas for a presidential primary or general is round the clock, pretty much provisional research for this office.
These are the things that
You consider,
these are the things that I made notes about.
And you also have to take into account absentee by mail. What this is going to require now is instead of 3 envelopes for absentee by mail, we're going to have 4. And 1 envelope is strictly going to be for photo ID. Because you can't have the ID in with the ballot. We can't accept the absentee by mail ballot in for the board to potentially approve. Because we don't know if there's photo ID in the ballot because we can't open the ballot. So there's gonna have to be an envelope just that we can open to say, yes, they provided photo ID. Then we can accept pending board approval into the system to have those ready for you all.
Official ballot.
Yes. So then you all can accept or deny based on opening of that ballot.
so scenario, person at home does not drive, has no kids around,
Are they gonna get a copy of their,
they have to get a copy of their photo ID, driver's license, state issued ID, college ID for so many colleges that are specified. They have to get a copy and put that in that envelope.
and you know what's gonna happen.
Nobody's gonna send that in that envelope.
Well, it's gonna be in with the ballot, and then also, we're gonna get people's driver's license. Older folks who don't have access to a printer copier and doesn't have family. I could see them sending,
Yeah.
Oh, God.
it's gonna happen.
Well, I mean, when the photo ID requirement was first passed with the Constitution and people, it voted, and it was legal there for a while until it was appealed. What was the setup here then? Is there any records that show what was?
Well, I'm sure state board has took that into account, legal team just took all that into account. But it is a different world from then,
Completely.
too.
And it will be, that different world will be spelled out prior to
Yeah.
primary, just as it was in 2020, that you can do this, this, and this. Even if you have no ID, the provisional ballot. And in some cases back in 2020, that provisional ballot could still be, back then, it could still be approved by the members of the board.
Hmm.
It didn't go through the system where you all are going to take it and look at it before you sign it in and put it in for approval as accepted.
Yeah.
You're going to want to see that first.
We will have to.
Okay,
We'll have to have
that
record
is
of
something
that.
other that is different from the last time. So they're working on it.
Because I could see that potentially being considered probably. What, nothing I just said there, but to be considered a provisional at that point, to where you would consider it at the supplemental absentee pending their supplying you with that photo ID that they did not, with an absentee by mail. You know, we never really had a provisional absentee by mail in the last few years, but I think that's exactly how it'll be treated. It'll be another provisional. And you see here, there are some exemptions, as well, to where the voter might sign that ID exception form for religious reasons, you know, they can't have a photo made, and that kind of thing, so.
I can see people mailing in their actual card.
Older individuals, we can see it for sure.
That's the people that vote. Absentee, people can't make it.
So that's gonna be, again, our office will then need to make that photocopy and mail that back to the person or contact them and let them know, and do you want to pick it up? Do we need to mail it? I'm sure there'll be specific items in a numbered memo that will give us
State will give you.
what you will do, because there can't be 2 or 3 ways.
They'll give you proper procedure.
They will, and I hope they do.
Well, they have to.
It's
Mhm.
I'm sorry, the instructions for the fourth ballot envelope, or fourth envelope for the photo ID.
Mhm.
Of course, the state, will they develop the standard
Oh, yes. Mhm.
procedure, the instructional procedures, they'll put that will be printed standard
Yep,
all across the state.
yes.
So
No
all we
one-
do is we just hope that someone that makes those instructions,
Well, and those instructions are already quickly being looked at, because absentee by mail will begin in July for September elections.
for those
So
those
we're
counties
only a
that have
month,
municipal.
we're only about 60 days out from that needing to be,
At least we won't have to
Ready to
worry about
go. so I'm happy that we have odd year municipal elections.
That'll be a trial
Even
for the
here,
other
did I say
counties
odd?
that are
Glad we
having
don't
that.
have odd, glad we have even.
I just hope those instructions are written very plain, explicit, clear.
Also, Mr. Chairman, we have to think, we've already submitted our budget. Our budget was not submitted for a 4th envelope for either election. So that is additional printing, that's additional supplies that we have not budgeted for. You know, so we will, I'm sure we can accommodate for that, but again, it's just an item,
We'll have
especially
to go back to the county manager.
potentially, especially for the general. And if we did have a potential second primary in 2024, we will for sure, a possible second, we will for sure need.
You don't have any idea of what kind of
Not
expense you may run into because of this ID?
We don't, and we don't know the size the envelope is even going to be yet.
Well, I mean, you don't have any idea what kind of volume to expect for that.
it. No press.
I go
And
back and think
postage.
about,
Postage,
you know, how that could be abused, if someone wanted to
and again,
say, we're gonna overwhelm that all.
our postage will go up, that's going to add weight, you know, to the mailer as well, and it was already $1.90, I believe, was last time. So,
We can do
oh, yes, we will do it.
We will have to do it.
Mhm. And again, we're gonna have to potentially have, especially for our chief judges, additional training for, the primary.
Like working on a module for that, or do we make that internal?
We'll make that internal. The state hasn't ever provided training. We'll do that on our own. Just to touch on, the redistricting, there's not a lot to discuss there, but just remember what happened in 2022. If the redistricting does occur, it's very, very possible there will not be a March primary, it will be a May primary.
It likely will be.
Yes. Now, I hope they determine this before they let filing occur for one day again. That was not pleasant, filing was opened and then it was closed after one day for, what was it, 2.5, 3 months. So, but you never know, we gotta be prepared for.
My primary filing open in December.
What it is now, it's December, but with this just occurring on April 28th, it's very possible that, they're telling us counties should be prepared to take the steps required with geocoding and new districts.
So it's back to the legislature can read that. What we have districting now, was it done previous to the ruling and
Yes,
so the General Assembly can redo it all?
the General
That's what
Assembly
you're saying.
now has the opportunity to enact all new districts for State House, State Senate, and U.S. House for 2024.
Okay.
And for Surry County, we did get lucky in that we went from 2 House and 2 Senate to 1 House and 1 Senate. So it simplified things for us with the last maps. And I say that we didn't have split county for House and Senate as we did before, but that could change.
And then there was 3 House members that covered about 6 counties.
Yeah, all split up.
Something like that in Senate too.
And then also what was official as of the 28th of April, the felon voting eligibility. Prior to the 28th, the changes had been made that unless you were incarcerated, you could vote. That ruling has went back, as you see here, to if someone has outstanding probation or period supervision, then they would not have the right to vote. And if they still owe fees, they can vote. But it is also, the court has ruled that it is constitutional to extend a period of supervision if fees are still not paid. So they extend probation, then that person would not, of course, being on probation, they would not get to vote.
It's all on the felony voting. Is that going back to what it used to be? Is that going to make it simpler than having new rulings on felon voting to have to put out to our precincts? Does this make it easier
Well,
for our people?
it never makes it easier when you've had an election in November that you said they have the right to vote, and then you let a year and a half go by, and then, oh, now remember what we trained you on last time. If you have your old training books, this is incorrect. Now
We're gonna change it.
we're changing it again. That's a little hard to keep up with. Let me use that behind you so that don't.
I don't really see an influx of former felons coming in that.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's not part of the challenge.
There were so few that knew it. We were surprised because in Mount Airy, One Stop, for example, their probation is there. And they had to pass the voting enclosure entry to get to meet with their probation officer. I spoke with I don't know what his title is, but one of the probation officers and said, when did you all make your people aware? And he said, what do you mean?
Where what?
So the word somehow did not get to probation, that arm of the state, that this information was given to them, so they did not know. And so I then immediately provided that information to him, and many did not know. And then if they did find out, they were still very apprehensive.
If they did know, if probation parole did know, they do not have an ideal system to really monitor it or to get it and it be uniform to all of their
Outlets.
people. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's sort of a hop, skip, and jump. You know.
But what we saw more than ever was in Mount Airy, again, because of the location, was that the few that did know, just, they didn't want to, in their words, test it for fear of.
Being in the hall with the probation officer.
Yeah, and to be honest, if you all recall during that time, in Florida, people had been arrested for voting. It was exactly when One Stop, the first week of One Stop opened in November. And I did have one in the hall tell me, I saw it was on the news last night. I'm doing that.
And it was being widely
It was being widely
publicized.
publicized. So we did run into that there as well. So stay tuned. Again, I think we're fortunate that we don't have an election so soon, that maybe some of the kinks might get worked out on this. And I will provide you all with anything upcoming as well that might change with any of these legal updates as well.
July 18th is the date people get sworn out.
Yes. Mhm.
You heard what the conference is gonna be there?
They hadn't told us a thing. And they promised we would know last Friday.
How can anybody make plans? I mean,
It's silly. I'm just gonna say it, it's silly.
maybe they won't. Put a big
That is,
pile up.
We think they're letting the counties that they want there know. They're not letting us, they don't want. Yeah, I'm joking. It's ridiculous. You know, you all know, you block rooms, how many years in advance for something
Yeah.
like this? So come on now. Yeah,
But
it's not even funny anymore at this point.
Don't make sense.
Call for a vote.
Yes, this is cost per vote from the November general election midterm. And I did provide not only the 2022 cost, but you'll see the spreadsheet for 2018. Just as a comparison, but let me give the caveat that 2018 had IVOs,
that's what,
IVO voting system.
Different
You
voting.
did not have paper ballots. So it is a little bit of a, not apples to apples with your, those items.
Had that little screen cut, you remember, had that roll of paper and show how.
oh,
you
yeah.
voted?
It was
Yeah.
hardtail paper,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah, I
And
do.
you went through a ton of hardtail paper, a lot. And also in the consumables portion here, you see quite a lower number in comparison to 2020, of course, when we had paper ballots. But we were able to reuse some of the consumables with less toners, less blank ballot stock, that kind of thing. So that's why the consumables is a little lower. And also, there was no mileage paid for either location for this particular election in November. We usually get into mileage more when we have the Elkin location or the pilot location, because in Elkin, we have to pay people from out of precinct to work in Elkin because we just can't get anybody to work.
Right.
And then we are paying mileage for the people who work the pilot one stop to bring the items back to here every night, the ballots.
Right.
To this office, so we pay that captain mileage as well as from the Elkin side,
There was more votes in 22 than 18 also, weren't
Well, you see there, let's see, 40, it's pretty close.
there? What is the number of votes?
If you look there, voters,
Okay.
yeah, it's not too far off.
No,
4363 here in
I'm
Dobson,
not wrong, that's right.
and then 7872 in that area to 7900.
Yeah.
So that's pretty
Very
close,
close, yeah.
yeah.
That is remarkably close.
Mhm.
I really thought there was more last time.
And you have to remember too, look at your pay. $9 an hour,
Suppose
yeah,
the new pay rate,
and this was the new pay rate that was effective July 1st, 2022. So this was the first election with this pay rate. That is your difference.
today, of course, will not be the day that we anticipate deciding one stop.
Correct.
Till we have a full board.
Correct.
With a general election, presidential election, and primary. As we had in 2020, we had all 4 voting sites open.
And Mr. Chairman, I think we'll have to really stay in tune to legislature in the coming days, coming weeks. There's quite a few items in front of legislature about length of one stop. Possibly reducing it to 7 days from 17 days. If that occurs,
Really?
oh yeah. If that occurs, the only way to look at that is,
Really?
you're gonna have lines on election day.
So one stop will help reduce those lines.
7 days.
Should.
And then I think what they'll do is they'll probably let the county boards of elections determine the Sunday participation. But that'll be about it.
It'll have to be one Saturday, the last day,
Uh-huh.
if it wasn't this ball showing.
17 to 7.
That's it. That's one item that has been introduced that has not been determined yet, so.
Wow.
Stay tuned.
Can do that.
And again, we're gonna need to, what we will do as staff is we will have to continue to have communication with all 4 one-stop sites and have them, the agreements made, the dates blocked out for 17 days, just in case. Because, if the decision's made in the next month, and then this board probably will need to determine the one-stop plan by late January, early February. That's not enough time for in 3 weeks to have those places secured. So we'll be securing those places this summer. And in hopes the sites agree.
Angie, our real estate division, retiring,
Yeah,
just retired, we're going to need to anticipate making those contacts.
yes,
And as you say, blocking the 17 in anticipation that there's no change.
yes, we'll proceed with those dates.
And having, at least having the 4 locations secured for us to decide upon later this year.
Mhm.
It's going to be 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that they make the decision to go to 7. I hope they, I wish they would do that soon.
It'll happen in the next month. It'll have to before, while they're in session.
You know, do it, or do whatever, you know, obviously we're abiding by whatever it is, but do it quick. Do it quick
And of
so we
course,
can do what we have to
I think
do.
the language on that would be 2024. It could not get the folks in the state who have elections in September, October, November.
Sure,
That would
this
not,
won't affect us.
right.
It makes it more economical, but if they do make that on all the counties as far as that, but it's gonna increase, I think, the number of voters in those 7 days.
Mhm.
And it really makes those locations more efficient.
Mhm.
They're
And I
gonna do
think-
more work in the time, but it's gonna be, the time's gonna be more efficient.
Mhm. And I think, this board might have to reconsider their history of their view of voting on Sunday. You know, staff will do as the board thinks is best, but we also understand if 7 days is the schedule we are given, I don't see how we would be able to accommodate 6 instead of 7. So we understand Sunday voting might very well be on our schedule, so.
Well, I'd hate to see us do that, but for them, our 6 days would be a difficult thing to pull off. Some people.
Less Sunday.
So it only be the one Sunday.
Just one Sunday. Of course, we'd have to have Saturday. You'd have one Saturday. Of course, all that's
Who
still,
knows? That's to all
We
be,
never had a Sunday.
that paint's not dry on the canvas yet.
I never had one since I've been here.
and I know in our district alone, we discussed it briefly, District 3, and the handful that have had Sunday voting offered, the turnout is poor. That's a very poor.
More to the east, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And 6.
In larger
Perfect.
cities. Mhm.
And I would assume if you did it, you go Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
That's what you do. Yeah, you have to, because you can't, you've got to have that last Sunday to turn around
Yeah.
for election day. Yeah.
Sunday and Monday, be ready.
So with all that being said, you can take this as you might, but
For what day it is.
What day it is, but
Good to reminisce of that.
yeah, I did want to get it down and get it to you to have in the coming months. But, you know,
I appreciate that. Sitting there.
Thank you very much.
and I think I've explained this before, but you do see as well, back in 2018, it was across the board $9 an hour. And the difference in the $14 versus $15 an hour for the 2022 pay rates, everyone is $14 an hour that works at a one-stop location except for the captain and co-captain. They are the $15 an hour based on, you know, they have to get there earlier in the morning and they are responsible to reconcile at night and to get the items back to us here each night.
It's easy to reconcile as far as
Yes.
the responsibilities for those positions.
And we do have some holes, we have some gaps in our appointed precinct chart that Sydney's been working on, and we just hope we can get those holes filled.
With people.
Yes, people. That makes us a little nervous for what's coming, but we are going to try our best to beat the bushes. I do want to ask this board to think about before our next meeting. I've asked the HR director, assistant county manager, if the county would consider an incentive for county employees to work election day without taking any kind of leave. And she has advised that this board make that decision to then be a written request to the Board of County Commissioners.
So
Many
the
counties do
employee,
that.
the employee setting at DSS or secretary at EMS, they could say, we're gonna go and work those 5 work days in that 7 days,
No, only election day.
only on that.
Mhm. We're only asking
Okay.
for election day. Mhm.
Would be like somebody not being charged vacation.
You wouldn't take your comp or vacation. You'd still get paid like you were at your normal county job, but you might be working at your home precinct or another precinct if you would be willing.
But then they would be receiving the pay of that
They sure would. They would also receive the
as
pay,
incentive,
yes.
and then training.
They would have to attend trainings to where, but we already have that in place. Those people that do work for us, that work at DSS, they get their $30 per training already. And they are taxed. That's the only thing that, to where non-county employees or non-one-stop workers are not taxed, and that's unfortunate, but we can't get around that.
I know you probably already did outreach to, I know you have to the high schools, you outreach to the community college.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Very little response. Excellent response from the high schools.
Yeah.
We really
I know my
have,
granddaughter came through
Yeah.
that way.
we really have one of the best programs in the state. People are amazed with our student election assistance.
I wonder why the college, community college doesn't, what the deal is
I
there?
don't know if there's not a strong student council. I mean, that's what was presented to me when I was there. I don't know. I'm not sure what it is. But we're very thankful for our student election assistance through the high schools. It don't pan out so well in the primary sometimes. Or let me back up, if the primary's in May, it don't work out at all.
Yeah.
If our primary is
Well, they're
backed up in
in
May, they checked out.
Myrtle Beach.
They're checked out, yeah.
Well.
Which we ran into that in 2022.
Yeah. Always,
Yeah, it was.
years ago, you remember?
Well, not too awful long ago.
Yeah.
Really.
May, first Tuesday in May.
Any other questions or comments about cost per vote?
You budgeted for the next year for anticipation if we do vote to have 4 sites. You have that budget to cover the 4 sites if that's the decision of the board
Yes, sir.
for 17 days.
Yes, sir. For the full period for 17 days. And those sites are the rescue squad in Pilot, the rescue squad in Elton, this office here, and the Mount Airy. I said service center, but that's what this is.
Lowe's building.
Human service.
Human service center, yeah.
I still never know what to
Human
call that
resource.
building.
Building behind Arby's.
Yeah, that's what I say.
So-
State Street.
No anticipation of any changes to those. Those are working out as near to being perfect
So far.
so far.
And we try to keep, we always try to have the places better than we left them, anticipating that we're gonna come knocking again, asking to utilize them, so we hope so. With rescue squads though, we do understand, presidents, whatever their their lead person is often called. We know that changes. So sometimes we might get a person in charge who might not be as gung ho, but, because we do not pay for those places. But so far, we've never had an issue.
I heard the reports that we leave them in better shape than maybe what they were when we walked in. And they appreciate that.
But you know, in
They
Pilot,
recognize it.
we did some we spent some money on locks and lighting and things that they did not have in place. So I think we definitely, improved that room, improved it for our benefit, of course, but, you know, again, lights is good for them as well, so. Locks,
That's a real good deal.
yeah, we think so. But yes, budget-wise, I did budget for the 4th.
Good, good.
An appropriate presidential election.
Yes.
Any other business that you have in open session?
I do have, if you see in front of you, I have a, it's a little chart with X's.
Right.
I think Clark had proposed, well, he had contacted me before the September date, which was the destroy date for the 2020 election. That was the 22 months retention time that was up, to survey as many counties as possible to see what they were going to do or what they did do with their 2020 records. We have been keeping this updated throughout that period. You know, this board voted to retain the 2020 election records for 30 additional months beyond 9/24/22. I did want to update the board as to what our findings were and to let the board know what we have been spending on that storage unit for those items since January. So you can see the spreadsheet there. It's a little hard to, you might have to use a piece of paper to keep your line straight. But you do see the first column are the counties that did destroy according to the record retention schedule. And then you see ones in the middle that are either not destroying or they have an anticipated destroy date. And you'll see the ones with comments, most are waiting for a shred truck when the new budget comes, July 1. Or they're waiting, they say, you know, we wait and have 3 elections and shred all at once. It's a better, you know, it's a better price for us.
Space is not an issue.
And then there are a few, Stokes in particular, I know they said, well, we just hang on to it because space is not an issue. We don't have to pay for our storage. There's a couple like that. Let's see, there's another, oh, Yadkin, you know, or Wilkes, their space is not an issue. Wilkes.
Yeah, what's the Yankee said anticipated? You know when that,
They had no anticipation date, so.
But with those that have been destroyed in 2023, along with what was already destroyed at the date, the scheduled date, 9/22/22, most everything is, there's a lot larger columns that would be all destroyed, very few that are still held out. Some, as I say, they don't have an issue with space. We do, as far as if they count, they call.
Out of 30, 19 have destroyed.
I wonder, what kind of issue do you have? Or do you still have, I mean, I know I came up here, we were having at least at one time still issue with a lot of public record requests coming out of that. Tell us about that. How's that?
If you flip it over on the back, we've had 135 hours have been spent between August of 22 and September of 22, just in that month and a half. That alone was spent in getting those results tapes electronically. We have them electronically. So let's say we destroy those tapes tomorrow. We've got them all now, as of that day, electronically. And then, since that time, we've had 29 hours spent on public records requests just related to the 2020 election.
Okay.
So the requests have papered off
And yes,
most of the groups, outside groups that have wanted information or public records requests. I think one has already told you they don't want any more.
if you remember in December, two individuals came and wanted to scan with their phones and take an image of every results tape from the 2020 election.
We were invited to come that day. I did.
Yes, I was gonna say, somebody came that
I
day.
came that day to watch that process.
And they were here about 7 hours and then did not get through, I think absentee, one stop, but got through very little because it's very time consuming. And so
Yes.
they said they would get back with us to schedule the date to continue. The next day, we got an email saying they do not wish to continue that.
I can report to the board that I watched that day. I wish the full board had come that day, but I can report that staff, this department staff sit in this room that day without a thing in the world to do but sit and watch them.
But it was mandated that
I know,
Well, because it was the tapes, it was not copies.
the actual tape.
yes, and which meant that a staff member of this,
Well, we actually had a bipartisan staff.
yes, of this small, had to be here to.
I would anticipate that we may calendar when we go after July with a full board to revisit the 30 months extension. And move with the board's approval to cap that and move towards the shredding and extinguish that storage unit. Fee.
How much does it cost a month?
93 a month.
It goes through 2020, sometime 2025, and that's another $2,000.
Pays for a lot of postage where we're having new postage for new college to say federal ID required. Let's revisit that with a full board to hopefully anticipate capping that and moving that date back.
And how I obtained this, we did a listserv question to the counties, and then we followed up with our district by phone call. So that's how this information was obtained for spreadsheet. And of course, we had a couple of counties who said, of course we destroyed. We abide by the law. They emailed that, so
Because by law, they were to be destroyed.
9/24/22
Wayne County.
was 22 months from certification, which is what federally the state says for all election materials.
I think that we have been abundantly generous holding the material. And now we have no requests, well, that'll need to come in the future with full board.
I think we're being generous to even wait for a full board.
Well,
I do. I think we should follow that retention schedule as mandated by the state. If there were reason to go beyond that, I think the legislature would dictate that. The legislature sets that schedule and does for all state county departments. So I would defer until we have a full board. I think we've been going way above and beyond with this.
yeah,
The longer they're there,
We invite trouble,
it's that right.
have invited trouble.
so any further business, open session on your end of the table?
The only other thing you see there, I've just got you some dates, for you all to mark on your calendar, what's gonna be happening between now and December. June 27th, I think that's the date, according to general statute, that we will know the appointments for all county boards in the state. For the four members and then the governor's appointment for that fifth person, chairman. And then on July 18th, if you all will please mark your calendar, we will need to have that
It's sworn in.
the swearing in, and then it is required by law to have a meeting immediately following to elect the secretary of the board. That is business that must take place if no other business. Yes, don't bring short that day, good.
I got you.
Or you can, if you want
Almost did.
to. And then again, as quick as we hear the location, I will send you an email.
I know you will. I can't believe it.
Maybe it's just gonna be from Winston.
Hey, that's far, far out.
I love to smell CA. Wouldn't it be pretty?
Don't get your hopes up, that's all I gotta
Hold on, we'll make another plan, just waiting on that.
Anything further from the board members present?
I do, while it doesn't require any revision to anything that we've done in past minutes, I want to clarify one thing from 2 or 3 other meetings that we've had, from back in November and January and even into February. We had some, the word I'm looking for, but uncertainty as to our disagreement on what the minutes should reflect
Conflict?
amongst the board members. And between the 5 of us at that time. And some of our minutes reflected that I had stated, well, I want them to simply be shown as verbatim. My intention was never to say, and it doesn't need to be, we don't need to go back and revise anything. I don't want the minutes to be verbatim in each of our minutes, each of our meetings. What I want to, all I'm trying to say is if we are in a meeting and there is disagreement over some segment of our meeting, then that portion of what's said and that portion should be reflected verbatim, so that there's no question about what the members around our board have said, and that way the public knows exactly what's taking place, not from the time we say this meeting has come to order to the time we say we're adjourned. So
Makes perfect sense.
I find that our minutes have been sufficiently kept. Information going back into the minutes from where that I do not remember all, recollect all that took place. I can go into the minutes and get where discussion was held that I slipped my mind. And it helps to be able to say, oh, we did talk about that. It wasn't at that meeting, it was at this meeting, and we have a record of that.
Right.
And I'm extremely satisfied with the efficiency and what we have.
Same here.
Not to be, make the actual secretary make it too wordy, but what really, when things go smoothly, not much, but when there is discussion or possible disagreement, it's a sunshine law. It's just, if you put everything that happens out there, what's wrong with that?
There shouldn't be a problem with that.
No,
Yeah.
no.
If I lay an egg, just let's go ahead and let everybody see the egg.
Yeah. I mean, there's, no, I don't see why there should be a problem. And they haven't been.
If there's nothing further in open session from our director or board members, I would seek a motion that we close the open session and go into a closed session for personnel matters.
So moved.
Right.
We have a second. All those in favor of going into a closed session for personnel matters, please say aye. Aye. Okay. We are back in session from our closed session. We're in open session now. We, during closed session, for personnel purposes and reasons, took no actions, no votes, during this time. So, is there anything further now in open session? If not, I would consider a motion to adjourn.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Aye.
We have a second. Any discussion? If not, thank you all. We are closed. We are adjourned.